And come on, there we go. Hello, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to us. Look who's here with us. We have a special guest this week. We have Damien, Sleepy Reader 666. Welcome.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rasta. Yeah, no, that's totally fine. It's good to have you. It's nice to have some extra guests here. And then Rasta is back with us, of course. So let me just make sure I've got this closed, that open. Okay. So why don't we just jump right into it? Why don't we, Damien, since you're our guest today, why don't you lead off? And what do you got for us? What have you been reading?
Well, I was realizing, listening to one of your recent chats, that you're talking about whether you read because you know you're going to talk about it on YouTube or not, or whether that affects you.
Yeah.
And things that I'm not going to talk about on YouTube, I'm like a butterfly flitting from flower to flower. And I worry that I don't finish things and that YouTube helps me finish things.
Yeah.
But so this past week, I've read a little bit of Junjo Ito's No Longer Human.
Wow.
Oh, you did.
This is my first time reading Junjo Ito. I guess he's like a really famous horror manga artist, or manga graphic novelist. And so I'm about 50 pages in, which I guess is nothing by manga standards. It's a really cool package. You've got the cover, and I think it's just one volume.
Yeah.
And then on the inside, you've got that on the back cover, and then on the inside, you've got that on the back cover.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
And I started reading it, and I thought, wow, I can do I always have trouble with manga. Now I'm having trouble finding the front. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. And it starts out in color, and then the color goes away, and I was really sad.
Oh.
And it's this weird first-person narrative, and I sometimes I'm into it, and other times I'm confused by it. Have either of you read any Junjo Ito? Or
I've read a handful of Junji Ito. There's Uzumaki being his kind of, or for me, the one that I heard about first, right? And then my son really got into his stuff. He's got a couple of his books, and my son devoured it. He loved it, absolutely loved it.
I have not had the chance, or did I wanted to have a chance because of the reviews of people talking about, because as funny with scary stuff, I'm kind of like, especially if it's brain kind of scary stuff, it actually freaks the shit out of me, and I usually don't sleep. So especially I've heard a review about one of the Spirals where people like really freak the shit out.
Oh, did Spiral come from him? Okay.
Yeah.
That movie.
Yeah, so that's the one I probably would be curious enough to do it, but I never grab a chance to do so,
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like my, 8th attempt at reading manga. So we'll see if this one lands better. But so far I'm enjoying quite a bit, but it does have that alien kind of feel to me. Not in a negative sense, but and there's been like child molestation, which was kind of intense.
Okay.
It wasn't too graphic, but it was pretty clear what was going on.
Okay.
So we'll see how horrific it gets as it goes on.
Yeah, well, and I think that's part of what it is with him especially, and I think we had talked about it once. I think maybe it was with Adam, I don't remember, but there's some short stories where there's this real, I don't know, there's a different kind of intensity to his horror stories. There was one that stands out that I still haven't read, and it's these people that are getting pushed through like a mountain basically, and the mountain has this human figure body shape as they're getting pushed through this mountain, and that just even that idea and seeing some of the images, it gave me such an intense feeling of claustrophobia that I'm like, I can't read it. And it seems there's definitely more of a psychological element to his horror stuff where it feels like this I don't even know how to put it, something that could literally happen to anybody, where some of the horror stuff, it's like, well, what are the chances a guy with a hockey mask is going to be chasing you through the woods? It's pretty slim. Whereas, I guess what are the chances of you getting projected through a mountain too? But there's something about that idea of this claustrophobia and stuff that he seems to tap into, or these kind of body horror type of things, so yeah.
And this one seems to be about the horror of thinking you're different from everybody else and trying to cover up that fact. And it doesn't help that you're also being molested. But
Yeah,
So it's sort of the autobiography of someone who's like desperately afraid to be found out as not properly human, no longer human is the title. So
yeah.
So we'll see how far I get, because as I say, I keep flitting around to different things. So the knowing that I've made myself do my weekly comic book pull video, make sure that I read those, and then then my shallowness, goes around.
If you haven't seen it, Damien, there's that show Man Men that I've talked about before. There's an episode, I think you can find it to watch online, maybe on Vimeo or something like that. There's an episode that's just on Junji Ito, and it's him at his desk, and you see his process, and there's an interview and things like that with him. It's really a really good one, especially seeing the way he draws and just really getting a different perspective of that. It's well worth checking out.
Yeah, I'll look for that. That sounds cool.
Hello, Mind the Comics.
Hello, G.
Hey.
Sorry, Rasa, you were going to say something there before I jumped in.
No, I said, how do you find Damien reading? Is it that's what disturbs because for me, and that's the manga is all about, like, where I tried difficult for me is the
going
reading.
backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I make mistakes every now and then, but that's not the hardest thing. Is there's just kind of an approach to the psychology of character that is different than I'm used to.
Okay.
And so I don't always make the connections. But I do appreciate this book has kind of a subtlety to it, and it's not some other manga I've read is like the emotions are just so out there, and this is not that bad.
Yeah.
But and maybe because I don't have in a horror story, I don't have the baseline of what normal behavior should be.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how abnormal the kid in this story is or not. If he just thinks he is, or if he really is. But that's an interesting thing about reading things from other cultures, right? Is working your way through the way other cultures think.
Yeah.
For me, it's like, the certain way you should, like, when you start reading comic books, those speech bubbles, the way you follow them, because if you don't follow them properly, the story doesn't make sense. So for me, when the manga is easier because it's so fast paced, you usually don't have that much text going on, but you still hack kind of scenes. And I remember the first time I read it, I was like following the panels in the way we follow the panels, and it's like, what the hell? And then I was like, dude, think, you're reading manga, you're not reading comic books, so just do whatever the manga is supposed to be read by. It's like, and it's like my brain is just like keep on tricking me. It's like, I'm not like I should be able to get it. Like, come on, I enjoy stuff. Like, anime is one of the things I really enjoy as well, but manga itself for reading purposes, I have to get so much attention to it that I tend to like just completely flip, and it's like, what the hell is going on with me? So
I think this art is going to help me. That some manga art makes it hard for me to parse what's going on, but this art feels very clear and solid. So I feel pretty optimistic that this will be a manga that may help turn me around.
It looks really great. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, his art is amazing though.
Yeah. Sometimes I really miss the color, and it's like, if I had some color here, maybe I could parse what's going on in the panels better. But I don't find that problem here.
Hello, Paolo. Hello, Enigma. Yes, it's the Sunday meeting of the nerds. Welcome.
It even feels a little Stephen Bissett-ish, the style.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Taboo days and of course Swamp Thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw in one of your recent videos there, maybe it was the very last one, Damien, I don't quite remember, that you got the second volume of the collected Swamp Thing. Are they absolute editions? Are they that size?
Absolute edition. It's the absolute edition, so it's bigger. It has this really unusual cover that feels swampy.
Oh, really?
And then it's all been entirely recolored, which is my problem with it. But I still want to get all the volumes. Yeah, it's textured. It's kind of mushy, foamy feeling.
Interesting.
Oh wow. Yeah, the cover looked great because I'm with you. The coloring inside, like even when that first volume came out, the coloring didn't quite work for me. I never saw it in person though. It's sometimes hard to tell on a video. But yeah, the cover on that volume you showed was great. Like when you pulled it out of the case, it looked beautiful.
Yeah, so I'm kind of procrastinating on reading that because I want to savor it so much that I'm waiting for just the right moment.
Yeah.
I hope it would be horrible if I turn out to hate it, but I doubt that's going to happen.
Yeah, that would suck.
I mean, I've read it before, but it was a long time ago, and I've read bits and pieces over again over the years.
Yeah.
But so, did you guys want me to keep going, or do we go around in a circle?
Sure. No, yeah, go ahead. What else you got?
Okay, another thing in my butterfly.
Not in any sort of rush.
Yeah.
In my butterfly reading was I read 2 issues in volume 1 of Cerebus.
Nice.
Let me see if I can find them. One problem is in here he doesn't reproduce the covers, and so it's hard to find the beginnings of chapters. Okay. So yeah, I don't know the issue numbers actually. So I read one where he first meets Jaka and he falls in love with her magically, and then breaks her heart, and I believe she turns up again. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Cerebus.
Not that much.
The one thing that I know is that Gore Vidal has said, I think Gore Vidal had said Jaka's story is the one to go to. I haven't read any Cerebus myself.
Yeah, so I think there's a whole volume called Jaka's story, and this was the introduction of Jaka. So, well, are you aware that Cerebus started out as this spoofy imitation of Barry Windsor Smith's Conan period?
Yeah,
And it evolved. So this is the first 50 issues. They're from back in the 70s.
Oh wow!
And so where I am, it started to evolve a bit away from Barry Smith, and then if you flip to later in the book, it's starting to get really sophisticated. And of course, these are just the first. Is it 50 or 25? Maybe it's the first 25 issues. And that, and he just kept evolving and evolving. Yeah. In both the writing and the art.
So is that a newer version of that, Damien? Sorry to interrupt you there. Is that a new printing of it?
It's a new printing, but I don't think there's much different about it. I think the black lines are a little clearer than in the older printing.
Yep.
So it's not a big deal. And and it's frustrating. They don't tell you the issue numbers. Like there's the table of contents. They don't tell you issue numbers, and they don't give you the covers. So that part is unfortunate.
Yeah.
And I read a lot of these when I was a teenager. I discovered the early ones. He was the first person I know of to publish trades of his own. He would do 5 issues at a time, and I got the first 2 or 3 volumes of that as a kid and was really enamored with it. And then later, when I came back to comics, I was reading Cerebus again when it was more sophisticated. But I'm enjoying going back to watching his early development.
Yeah, those phone book volumes are. Oh, hey, there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
That's the old version of.
I see.
I think it's about the same.
Yeah, I have it as you can see, but I haven't read it yet. Which like always, you have things in your collection, and you just get lost in other things. So yeah.
I would say almost. I mean, I hesitate to say it, but in some ways, maybe just read the first issue and then skip ahead a bit till something looks appealing, because it took him quite a while to develop.
I wanted to read it anyway. I remember reading a couple of pages of it, and I actually was enjoying it. But because of, that, like we were talking before, that collection, I used to get that weekly police, and I used to be so enamored in it, and I forget what I have. So then as I say, I have this, and then you show it to me, and it's like, oh my God. So I should read it. Like, I'm going to talk about this, which was sitting for me here. I haven't read it, but now just because we're talking about it, I have like time. Okay, I'm doing it. So definitely going to have to have a look. I don't think I'm going to read the whole tome. I'm not never going to be as a quick reader as ever, but because there's quite a few word bubbles to read, but I guess I'm going to get into it because.
Yeah, so I would just give it a bit of slack in the early issues. Maybe even skim parts of it and don't read all the caption boxes or something. It sounds horrible to say that, but then look for starting points where it gets more interesting. I mean, he has interesting characters, like a joke on Elric of Melnibourne, called like Elrod or something, who talks like that chicken in Looney Tunes. I say, son, I say, boy. That's how Elrod talks.
That's perfect for me then.
and there's a spoof on Red Sonja and things like that. But then the characters start getting more developed and everything. Cerebus himself never develops. He's just a one-trick thing, or maybe he develops later on as he becomes the Pope and everything in a negative way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, and as a I'm going to get kicked out of the country because I've never read it. And it's one of those books that I really should have read. I just never have.
Well, and it's amazing to think of him in starting to make a living off of self-published comics in 1977 by selling through the few comic shops that were around.
Totally.
And then lasting 300 issues.
Yeah.
But I hear the last 100 issues or so were supposedly not that good.
Yeah, I've heard the same, but still, apparently, I mean, you're totally right about that. Yeah, a little bit politically and stuff or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's impressive. It's an impressive feat. And I mean, even talking to Johnny DaCosta, I mean, he had it was his shop in I believe Kitchener-Waterloo, in Ontario there, so really, yeah, it is mandated in Canada, Paulo. I think they're at the door right now. I'm locked in the basement so they can't get me. Listening to Brian Adams, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so one day I will, and those phone book tomes are the way to go, like I said, but I just haven't dug into it. And I think
the early individual issues are quite expensive
stuff afterwards. Sorry, Davey, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the early individual issues of Cerebus are quite expensive.
Yeah,
even those trays I got as a kid are harder to find.
Yeah.
The other thing that I dipped into but haven't got too far, I guess I got about. So this is, again, it's just all the tale of me, other than my weekly pull list being a butterfly, is volume 2 of Green Lantern Earth 1. And aside from why the hell it's called Earth 1, I don't know. It's an incredible art feat by Gabriel Hardman.
Yes.
With his wife as a co-writer, and it's just beautiful to look at, but it's a little on the dry side. But they really do reimagine the Green Lantern universe in a very different way, so that it feels much more like hardcore science fiction.
Oh wow!
And I'm trying to. It kind of. It's that kind of science fiction where you start on Earth and you get an ever expanding view of what the galaxy is like. I really liked volume 1.
I read the volume 1 as well, and I enjoyed it as much.
Yeah, so this continues off of that, and we get where we get the beginning of the Yellow Lanterns. But I'm just not. I think I just have too much to read, so I read a bit of it. It's a bit on the dry intellectual side. Not intellectual like deep intellectual, but cerebral rather than emotional.
Okay, yeah.
And then I kind of put it down. But I plan to continue it. I was a bit surprised there even was a volume 2. Because I didn't know that the volume 1 was that big of a seller. But maybe these things are selling in bookstores. So anyway, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And I think a lot of what I do sometimes when I'm tired is just leaf through books and look at the art rather than actually read them.
Yeah, it's totally the way that it is. I'm the same way.
All 3 of these books, I've done as much sort of leafing through them and looking at the art as I have sat down and just read them.
Yeah, in a way though, it's kind of a good way to do it. Like just kind of reading a piece here, reading a bit there, instead of like this obligation to feel like just because I've started, I've got to sit and read it in one sitting, right? Like that's sometimes a horrible thing to do to yourself and that story.
Yeah, like a while back, I got a Jonah Hex omnibus, and someone said, "Oh, I can't wait till you do your video after you've read the whole thing." And so I realized, oh, that might be years before I read the whole thing. I'm just reading some of it now.
I have read
like Dr. Monkeybot and just fire through the entire history of Hellboy.
Yeah,
I can't do that.
No, me neither.
Much appreciation for him to be able to do that, but I need to kind of rest between stories. And stuff.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Rasa?
I read first 10 issues of Jonah Hex of the first volume. So with his first appearance after, and I enjoyed thoroughly. Honestly, the stories go. The first stuff was like it's gonna be like a slug, like kind of thing, or gonna go steady, and like without much of an action or stimulation in my own read. Like to see what's going to happen. But because I'm such a Western fan, I guess, all about cowboys and stuff like that, so it's really went through easily. And then I don't know, it's just development of the characters, and it's still follow through the stories. So when I saw you picking up the omnibus, I was like, oh shit, I actually would like to have that kind of in one set of volume. But the way I was reading it was perfectly fine for me, and I just wanted to know more about John Hex, because I have, as I say, I had that bug of Western stuff, which I had to appease myself. So I did it, and I enjoyed it a lot. And I really was surprised. A couple of them were drawn by what is his name now? Of course, I'm gonna blank the name, and I want to talk about it. Bob Kane, I think he's drawn some of the issues as well. So I didn't even know, I didn't recognize difference, kind of thing in that sense. But yeah, really good.
Yeah, amazingly nihilistic for the time they were published.
Yeah, in 1970s, isn't it?
Yeah, early 1970s, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of an amazing creation to come out of DC Comics.
Yeah, it's surprising that they actually gave a chance to that kind of character. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and now he's kind of a classic of their.
Well, the thing is a classic. Is a classic as well, but he's not. You have that. The one thing I really wanted to read is that creator Gray and Palmiotti. John Hex run, which is kind of famous for everything, whatever they were talking about. So they had this great run. People are raving about it. There's lots of people saying, why are we not coming back to the character? But that's the thing sometimes with DC characters, those obscure characters, they just shove them in the bookcase kind of thing. Oh, you just stand there like a good statue. When we want them, I'm taking you out and show you off again, kind of thing. Yeah. So, which is, sometimes you get those collected editions or the black label. Why not black label John Hex? I mean, it would be absolutely fantastic. I would be going the first one to shop. Oh, give me that black label book, please. Kind of thing. Yeah. Because it's perfect for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. But I think what they do over the long run is they do kind of every decade or so pull out these more obscure characters, give them a bit of a run, and then put them back.
Is that mainly just so they can retain the rights? Is that part of that? Let's publish something quick before we lose it.
That might be it. I mean, I think there's the Palmiotti and Gray run went quite a long time, so I think that might be why it starts out that way.
Yeah, but
they had that movie. Maybe that's what kicked off that run.
Oh yeah.
But DC right now is supposedly focusing on their central characters, so I don't think we'll see him come back anytime soon.
Yeah, exactly.
So you had shown off there a book, Rasa, that your assignment. Not your assignment. You know what I mean.
What do you mean this one? Are you talking about?
That one. Yeah.
Cursed Pirate Girl. Oh, I've read that a long time ago.
So Cursed Pirate Girl, a fantastic little book created by Jeremy Bastien, a French creator. So this book has been sitting in my shelves for a while, at least 3 years maybe, since I bought it, and I was like, oh yeah, of course I'm gonna read it. But then since we have a conversation, that one of the arts just made me fascinated by it, and I read it. So after that conversation we had on Monday, I had a time of surprise to have just sit down and read it. And I went, and I can see now that my son decided to, you can't see it in here, but he's decided to color some of my black and white book to make sure that there's more color in it. So but anyway, so this story is basically, it starts with a girl who she's one of the governors of the island, Dora, and they're going to celebrate her birthday, and they have this amazing feast. And of course, her dad is not very partial to the people who is living in there, because they are beneath them, all the pirates and all the people who is basically trying to live by this stuff. And what amazes me is the art, of course, in this book, which is absolutely fascinating. And you can't, when I was reading it, as you can see, there's not that much reading happening in most of the pages, but his art is so complicated, and gives you the need to look at more and actually basically kind of get distracted a little bit more. But the story is such a lovely way of telling, and you can see in this panel here, you meet the cursed pirate girl and basically her storyline here. I really liked it. It's like Alice in Wonderland, the pirate scheme kind of thing. All the crazy characters, the pirates, the imagination of the girl who is seems to be an orphan, and she's saying that she's a pirate's, because she knows that she's a pirate's daughter, and she has this great imagination. You think at first in reading in the book, but actually when it comes to longer in a storyline, it's actually true. She goes in this quest where basically she wants to find her dad. That's her living quarters before she went into quest. And so because of that girl first I mentioned in the storyline, they met together, and she was starting telling her stories of her, and then you can come and join me because, you know, like, why not? Because we two kids, we can have fun and do this amazing quest. But unfortunately, she got found out that there's such a scheme, and the dad locks her away, the girl, and she's like, you can't deal with this kind of people, because there's this important person comes into her birthday party, and they have to be showing the good grace, not being beneath the people who's living around them. So because dad basically wanted to impress everybody by that. And yes, the story went in, and the more you go in, it's such an immersive little story, but it's so well told that I just could not stop reading. So basically I finished the whole thing in one go, because it's so beautifully told and so much more imagination, where she finds this talking parrot who is basically the cursed pirate girl friend becomes, and he's basically, in order to go underworld, she has to fish for him, for the parrot, and parrot basically gets swallowed by the fish, and that's how it can breathe under the water. So it's just a fascination. And I don't know, it's just like, it was perfect read, and I think it would be perfectly told for kids as well, like my son. Hopefully one day I will be reading him some books, hopefully, if he's not gonna tell me, oh, just give me a tablet and that's it. I don't want to know what this paper books are all about. But yeah, it's definitely a really good story to read for kids, even though some parts is a harsh way of, but I think it's just such a lovely way of telling it, and the way it's ended, I enjoyed it, although I was longing for more. And it says it's volume 1, but I'm not sure if Jeremy Bastian has any chance of creating a second volume, because this is the print is called Olympian Publishing, but actually Olympian Publishing was taken over by Archaea, or they renamed themselves.
Oh, okay.
So there's a publishing of the same volume in Archaea.
I think I had the Archaea version.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So I don't know. I really hope they're gonna produce a second volume, because, as I say, it's a let's say a little bit of mind to imaginations, a man's imagination to tell a story, but it's such a well done. And as I say, Alice in Wonderland in exploding in the pirate world kind of thing, which is really cool. I mean, I like pirates.
Cool.
If I would be like when I was growing up, there was stories like that, I would be devouring them, because I just enjoy it so much. The imagination, the characters, the portrayal, what the kind of things they have to do inside to make the quest going there. So, but
Jacko has read it and said the art is unbelievable, and then he says my hand hurts just by looking at the art, which is quite a thing. Yeah, it looks incredible. I love it. I really like it.
Yeah, the story, how she gets, like, she had to go in to find into the underworld where the pirates were happening, and then there was the ships she had to go into in order to find out, because she doesn't know really how her dad looks like, because she has the idea of it, but she goes through these pirate ships and then looks like, I'm gonna check it out the quarters and find out if it actually feels like my dad. And she gets into trouble, but she's witty and she doesn't have any like scare. She's not scared of anything, like she has that pirate blood where nothing, whatever you're gonna throw at her, it's gonna scare her. And the way she lost her eye, it was kind of like a little bit shocking, to be honest, because of that that basically that girl she was talking about, she was kidnapped, be killed, and he basically smacked in the head, and because of that she lost her eye. And it's like, oh my god, that actually was like a bit disturbing for me.
Yeah.
Maybe it would be disturbing really for kids. Maybe you can gloss it over when you read that to your kids, but it's really good. It's honestly well worth anybody's time, because it doesn't last very long, and then it wants you to long more for reading more for this kind of story again. So I hope one day we'll see a second volume, because I definitely would like to pick it up.
Yeah. Sounds awesome. Mm-hmm. Did you read it?
I heard that he's working on more.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I'm following him on Instagram to make sure that, just see what he's up to. But I haven't seen him lately on that. I think he's still drawing and stuff like that. But I'm not sure if he's basically working on stuff, like how successful was it? Because I know it was kind of like people who discovered it really loved it and followed it through. Like a lot of people who get like, because there was only 3 single issues came out for this volume basically, and if you want them in single issues, it's kind of difficult to get hold of, because I think he just did it himself on a really like a small scale.
Maybe it just hasn't made it to the English market yet.
Oh yeah, well there you go. Volume 2 came out in France in 2016, so we definitely didn't, because I have not seen anything saying about Volume 2 in English, which is unfortunate, which is what we have to live with, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like we say, we need to speak, like we need to read French as well in order to.
Yeah, totally. A bunch of different languages just to get all the stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Yeah, it looks great. What else did you read besides, like, before we get into Velvet? Did you read anything else this week?
Well, of course, I was reading Invincible, and I had this like.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it was one of the more emotional things. Again, Damien, have you read Invincible? Are you muted again?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
you're muted, Damien.
Sorry. Quite a while back, I read the first 2 hardbacks and then I stopped reading it. I can't remember why really, but I just got interested in other comics at the time. Mm-hmm. So how far into it are you?
I am in issue 70, I think.
70, okay.
So I'm right deep inside that storyline kind of thing, saying that. Okay. Anyway, the last 2 issues I read, I did not like. I as I told you before, guys, I've been reading this comic at nighttime, so I was reading it about last night. Those last 2 issues where I just like my eyes opened up and I just woke myself up, kind of thing, because I usually read my comic books to make me sleepy. But those 2 last issues basically kept me awake because of what happened. Intensity fighting, like they say it's going to get really bloody. Mm-hmm. And then the last issue prior to the one I read, they had this, of course, again, another Viltrumite comes into Earth and says, okay, you haven't done what we were told you about, and I came here to basically destroy you and have fun. So by having fun, he would kill every single human, whatever he felt like doing it. And it's this guy, looks like Cable, but bald, with a big mustache and one eye. Well, like Cable's one eye as well, all gray, and he looks like really built like if Superman would age to whatever age, like 1000 kind of thing. He looks really built up, but it's like the mature strength, like you gain when you grow old, kind of thing. Yeah. So he comes into, and he's basically, the one thing he wants to do is destroy everything, and Invincible and Earth, whatever, because this is like these people are not worth anybody's time, but because he wants to have fun by beating people up, he's gonna do it. And there's confrontation between him and Invincible, and the limbs were like cracking. The blood was pouring everywhere. And then, of course, we have his girlfriend, who is Eve, Velvet Eve, I think it's called her. And then before that confrontation, basically, there are lots of things happened in the universe. A lot other bad guy came out to be alive again. That dimension hopper. Do you remember Terrence? I was talking about that dimension hopper with the brain thing. So he's still alive. He managed to take every single invincible from every single dimension, brought them in that dimension where current invincible is, and they had this crazy fight. Nobody was beating everybody. Like about half of the superheroes of that book completely died. That's spoiler alert, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's so sad. And I was like, oh my God, so what else can it be? And then this douchebag comes in, let's fight. And he's like, fuck, let me rest. I just had this amazing fight, and you come here in my face. And, he's trying to be funny kind of thing in situation like that. But of course, that guy is nothing about funny. So he just wants to beat him. And there's this blood pouring everywhere. And this Eve, she wakes up because she was in coma because after the previous fight. And it's like, oh, I have to help him. Like I can't walk, but I'm going to help him fly there. She flies in, and this douche shoves his arm through her heart. And you're like, oh, what the hell? So she's like, another character is going to die. And I was like, no way. You killing all of them just before? I don't know. Is it finished? It's not finished. I know there's plenty of more to do. It's like, what is going on here? So much blood and shedding happening.
Wow.
And then she lies there. Invincible is crying his eyes out with his half teeth missing, his hand broken, his head is like basically squished in one side. And you're like, no, that's it. Basically, end of it kind of thing, you would think. Of course, you have this amazing thing happened. We have this like really, really bright light, and Eve resurrects herself because of her powers. She can make things from organic things into whatever she feels like doing. Like she finds a rubbish, she can make a house or furniture or something like that. That's her power was. She can manipulate that kind of. So apparently, because of she was manipulated while she was in the womb of her mother, and that's why she gained this power. Apparently, she could basically rebuild herself, and that's how they basically beat that guy. Even though they thought they beat the guy. As I say, this story was so crazy. I was like, oh my God, there's so many things happening. People dying left, right, and center. I was like, and then in the fashion of Kirkman, it seems to be in this book, suddenly he just stops it in there and then says, oh, let me tell you a story about somebody else. And like, what? Give you a break a little bit. That's way too much information for you. Let's just give you a break about something else. And there's a story about actually going to be telling you a story about what problem the Ultimates have, even though they're so powerful as a nation. They have a huge issue, which I'm not going to say because another thing I need to find out myself first before I speak about that. But definitely, Damon, honestly, this comic book is so involved. It has so much going on. You can't stop. You start reading, and I always said to myself, because of Kirkman, I will probably get fed up of it. But it doesn't let you get fed up of it because there's so much information going on. But it's so quick paced that you don't as I say, I've been reading this for some time because I'm taking my own time to do that. But I'm enjoying it because of action and information and the development of characters. And as it seems to be, he's not afraid to do whatever he wants. Like in the way writing, it seems to be such a free form writing that the story flows really well. So I really enjoy it. And that the bloodshed is just like, it's gnarly, honestly.
Yeah. It definitely doesn't sound like sleepy time reading, that's for sure.
No, I'll show it to you. Hopefully, I'll show it to you a panel, which was a little bit crazy for me, but I need to look for it. So, and his brother came to the fight, and it was so intense because I thought the son is gonna die, as the brother is gonna die. Oh, that's the douche in confrontation. This is not the panel I want to show to you, but this is the guy he's fighting. You can see.
Yeah, totally can see it.
Oh yeah, this is the way Invincible. That's the issue. Look how that's what I was talking about. That's how he was looking.
Wow.
So oh yeah, let me just show you that panel where like I'm not gonna sleep for the rest of the time. There. This is the panel where she basically, oh wait, this is the one. Look what he does to
Wow.
her.
Holy smokes, man.
This is Invincible for you guys.
Yeah, it was
That's
pretty
intense.
violent where I left off, and obviously he just keeps going forward with that violence.
Well, yeah, it's like it doesn't let. I mean, the blood is, as I say, everywhere, and this is what he had to deal with, and it just continues, and he just crying, and he's like, "You weakling," and then he gets really angry, and that's how. It's honestly, I don't think you should be able to punch anything, but he just like, while he was punching him, a hand broke, and it's like, oh, it just absolutely look. That's this Viltrumite had the arm of like armor, and that's what he does. And they punch each other. It's honestly, it's crazy. He bites. He lost his. He has like a couple of teeth, but he's still biting him, and it's like, oh,
yeah,
it's crazy. But Ryan Ottley's art, it's really good. It's perfect for the story for sure. His fast-paced panels really help for the actions.
Mm-hmm.
And the scene what happened with her, that's how her power. I almost kind of felt like Phoenix in a way, the resurrecting her, like those X-Men storylines. But yeah, definitely. Honestly, guys, if you're ever considering reading it, it's really good. It's just the way. If you want something action kind of thing, proper superhero, go on, and no consequences gonna be there because whatever he does, and he's like keep on learning that, like. I have at the beginning you had him like, oh, I don't have villains, but then villains are coming through, but to the point where like, he's just destroying things around him, and people are saying like he's like his dad because they start accusing him because of the villains coming in, like almost the same like Batman and Joker, like when Joker does all the horrible things, everybody's looking at Batman. Why didn't you kill him in the first place? Why you keep on letting him get away with stuff? Just shoot him. Like in the last I think there's a panel I've read, only one panel, those 3 Joker story where Jason, he just shot the Joker, and everybody's looking. So why not? Why not? He's the fucking bad guy. He's almost, he killed me. For God's sake, he killed me. I have a chance to, take a revenge, and you look at me like I'm a bad guy. That kind of thing, So yeah. I'm getting like, even as I say, I'm waking up even more because it's evening in UK. Okay, I'm kind of like most of the time I get really sleepy, but this storyline Invincible is so hectic. But as I say, this is definitely.
When will you read this out loud with your son?
Oh, but I'm gonna be a pensioner. It's like, oh, Luke, you should read this because I'm not gonna feel guilty, But no, hopefully, I mean. Kids these days, we can read whatever the hell they want before you knowing anything about it. So we'll see. As long as it's okay with the brain waves, I don't mind whatever son is reading, to be honest. As long as it's okay everywhere else kind of thing.
So not as violent, but definitely not tame. As soon as I made the video last night, I read back-to-back 3 and 4 of Wonder Woman, Dead Earth, and it was the same thing for me. Like I couldn't put it down. So I don't want to say too much. Rasa, you have or haven't read it? I don't remember.
I have not read it. No.
No. And Damien, have you read it?
I have the issues, but I haven't read them.
Okay, dude. No, don't be sorry. I just want to know how far I should say, so I won't say too much. Holy hell, this was like seriously. Very, very enjoyable 4 issues, like extremely enjoyable. I mean, his art is amazing. Daniel Warren Johnson. I'll show you some safe pictures from, make sure I'm picking out the right issue 3. There we go. It's incredible stuff. Like I've seen some of his videos. I've watched some of his live streams and seeing him do these kind of pieces for people. But, his artwork is just exceptional, and this story is just unbelievable. And the stuff that transpires in this one, I'm only going to show you from the first half of the book because I don't want to go any further than that. It's just amazing, and it's one of those things that it really highlights, for me anyway, like a potential with something like this Black Label. That said, I haven't read any of the other Black Label titles, so I don't know what it's like in the other ones. But the thing that excites me the most about this one is this fact of taking these characters and just really doing, you know, even beyond an Elseworlds tale, you know what I mean? Like just something that's a little more extreme. This one for me, it didn't seem like it was extreme to the point of like gratuitous or anything. I really thoroughly enjoyed the story, like legitimately enjoyed the story and like the ideas that he was presenting here, you know. I'm so glad that they found issue 3 for me. I'm really, really thankful because that issue 4 has just been sitting there teasing me for months, right? So highly, highly recommended if you can find it. I don't know what the idea is with these Black Label stuff down the road. I imagine they'll get to a point where they maybe collect them. I don't really know, but if you can find it, 100%, it's a hell of a read. And then when you do read it, let me know so then we can talk about it flat out. Because there's some shit in there that happens that I was telling my son about it as I was driving him home today, because I read it last night and literally just felt myself just completely nerding about, and then this happened, and then, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. I was just getting so excited about it, which is very rare for me with like a superhero style book, but she's a hell of a character. I love Wonder Woman, and it's just a hell of a story. Yeah, so Gore is saying Wonder Woman Dead Earth, it was wonderfully sad is what he said. Yeah, I thought it was a really nice ending as well too. I mean, they always do, they have the similar kind of thing where, you know, it's this kind of battle of between this kind of superpowers and then humans, and, you know, should humanity be allowed to exist and those kind of things, which some of that stuff, it leaves me a little indifferent sometimes. I understand that that's going to be a thread that they want to explore, but in that thread, I think they did a really good, or he rather did a really good job of putting a good story together. So yeah, cool. That was my big read. That was a really good one. Yeah.
I'm excited.
Did all of us read Velvet? Is that, did you read the first couple of issues of Velvet, Damien?
I did. I read the first 3. Were you reading just the first 2?
Yeah, I read first 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I saw you guys mention it, I thought, hey, I've been meaning to get to my nice hardback edition.
Oh, look at that stuff.
Oh, hold on. I'm going to solo screen you there for a second. Hold on.
Because we don't have. Oh my.
So yeah, no, we don't have it. You know, the deluxe edition. I guess nice. Only 15 issues. I don't know if there's any plans to bring it back.
We're hoping so. We were talking about it last week. I think at the time he had talked about there would be a series of stories. It just, pardon me, it hasn't happened yet. I mean, I really hope he does. Oh, wow. Look at that.
Wow. Yeah. All the art.
It doesn't have a ton of extras. There might be more extras in the books, right? He likes to put stuff in the backs of his books.
Yeah, the articles and stuff, yeah.
So, but, I mean, obviously the art looks really nice at this size.
Yeah.
Especially the coloring, I have to say. I enjoy the coloring.
Yeah. Wow, that's a really nice one. I love that. So what did y'all think about it? What did we, since we just read the first 2 issues there, Rasa, what are your thoughts? I don't know, starting at issue 1, I guess, yeah?
Yeah. Well, it's basically reconfirming me how excited I was when I was reading it, because I don't know, as spy things, a female-led team, like the story is always attract me particularly as well. But the way he's introduced the story, the way everything, the action comes in, and of course the art. You don't forget Steve Epting's, because this is creator team who did famous Captain America storyline, which you saw a movie after that as well. So they definitely are more than capable of doing that. And I just like, especially this panel here, the introduction to basically the story. It's just so well done and organized that I don't know. It's what I like, that they will have dates in there telling you when we're gonna start the story off from. I like the way she was basically telling how she got in trouble in the first place, and the story of that agent and how good he was, and suddenly he dies, and there is this amazement that she's secretary and nobody knows about her. supposed life before that, because of,
Yeah.
time passes by, people forget things, and it also manages to introduce everything to you, kind of the beginning of a story where it tells you where she's working from, or for who, tells you what happens, tells you the story where this murder occurs of the agent, and then basically she gets involved, and you like get surprised. And the best part, of course, this is my favorite panel was, and I still keep on remembering it because it's quite deep in the issue. But when you see her fly right at the back, you see her flying through that window, you're saying, what are you doing? And you read issue 2, and you know why. It's beautiful. It's just elegant storytelling so far, and it's exciting. The chase, the scene, the actions, the way she I like the way she's thinking ahead, how she has to think ahead to escape, and then and how surprised the agents who were fighting her, like, who is she? What the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
She's supposed to be just a lady who's typing things, she's not supposed to be kicking my ass, and almost like my agents have been like, one has a broken arm or something, or he can't breathe or something like that. It's just ridiculously funny how men can underestimate females sometimes, just because typing doesn't mean you can't do something extracurricular before that or prior to that kind of thing. So
that was one of the things that stood out for me this time. Like, because we know the story, I found myself just reading it at a different pace and a different kind of, a different mindset, obviously, because I know that it's going to continue a certain amount and it's going to have an end. What surprised me the most, well, maybe not surprised me, what I enjoyed the most this time is I really thought it was a really tight first issue, because they do a really nice job of giving you all this information and then still laying it out enough that when she kind of gets set up, I found that really exhilarating, that scene, like when she starts kind of unleashing basically an ass kicking on all these guys. I thought it was really impressive, and it came just at the perfect moment. Like, it's one of those things, that maybe we've talked about a few times, like the beauty of and the difficulty of writing like just a solid issue. And I think, like, for a starting of a series, I really enjoyed this one issue, because I agree with you that last panel with her jumping through the window, it's, I mean, you got to have the next issue, right? Like, you got to see what's going to happen. I really liked it. I think even more so than I did the first time. And again, like, the art is just incredible. And I'm with you. Like, as soon as you turn to that page and that's the image that you're getting, I think it's fantastic. It's a really amazingly designed character, and it just, the coloring on top of it is really, really nice. And I think also, now that I'm at a point where I've read a number of kind of, maybe not specifically espionage books or whatever, but again, like we talked about last week, this idea of delving into this history of these kind of stronger female characters, like we seem to be doing just with stuff that we've enjoyed, from Miss Tree to Modesty Blaze to Velvet, et cetera, like, really just fits in that world nicely. And it doesn't feel like, right from the get-go, you get that there's something extra about this woman, right? That it's not just some secretary, and sure, she's had relationships with some of the agents and stuff, but it's never presented in, at least in my reading, in kind of like a shitty way, like it's like looking down on her kind of way, Damien, what did you think?
Well, kind of echoing you guys, I thought it was like a perfectly paced, perfectly set up issue. It should be like something that beginning comic book writers study for how he sets up the whole story so well in 20 pages. And I also, I love the kind of spy story, and he does it in a way that captures the fun of it, but gives it a more intelligent psychological edge at the same time. And you pick up on that right away. It has that Brubaker literary pulp quality. It's like a great example of Brubaker doing his kind of literary pulp approach. I also really liked how, because this is 1973, I think, and she started much earlier than that, that the way she is so healthy about her own sexuality at a time when most people weren't. And that kind of sets her apart and makes her an extra strong person, along with what we eventually discover all her kick-ass abilities are.
Exactly.
But she's not hung up about. She just has sex the way she wants to. She's not hung up about it.
Yeah.
And she doesn't worry about what the standards are of other people's slut shaming or whatever. They didn't have that term back then. And I love it. It's so nice to go. It's been a long time since I've read something with Elizabeth Breitweiser's colors.
Yes.
And they're such good colors. I'm kind of sad that she has faded off into the Comicsgate world or something.
Yeah.
So is that true?
Yeah. She and her husband started their own publishing company, and he was really active in Comicsgate, and she kind of backed him up there.
Oh, I see.
But
I had no idea.
Maybe she'll come back eventually to mainstream.
Because she's really talented when it comes to colors, and she really understands the era. They were like really kind of, maybe of course they as a team they have spoken about it, but it feels really authentic kind of thing in the way where the timing is, like especially the movies, if you watched of any or spy movies or anything, but that the atmosphere, and it seems like you cannot you don't have to pick on it, like, oh, this doesn't make sense, it never happened in that time kind of thing, those kind of. Or for me, I'm not like the person who basically looks at every single detail in that sense. If it looks authentic to me from the beginning, I will be completely okay, it's fine, because you're telling me the story. I don't really need to nitpick of everything, but the feel and atmosphere, like those lonely walks she has in that purple color she's using it in that panel, for example, is such a nice moody way, because when she's like there's a murder happening, it's like really graphic, and like no like punches like there, like there's nobody, like you wouldn't want to show that to everybody, but like everything, whatever scenes of action or like when she's just reminiscing of the past time, you kind of feel that as well. You don't get lost kind of thing. And of course, the artist itself does a really great job for portraying this as well. But as a team, as we can see as in the comic book, sometimes when you don't have a great colorist, your art can just go away in some panels. But in here, it just enriches. It's like, it seems like he's doing it his best work ever in this book for me, especially because of her.
I agree. So I think they are like a perfect team, and they can make these dark, shadowy scenes completely clear and easy to make out and follow.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's so important in a kind of mystery spy story not to miss any details. And so it really it's really great that they were able to do that for this kind of story. So they are like the perfect art team for this kind of story.
Yeah.
G is mentioning it, and so is Enigma and Enigma Vibration, just talking about like the photorealistic style. And I'm totally hearing what you guys are saying. I've been the same way, but again, I guess I don't see it as much. This really just stands out to me that I think it's incredible stuff. I think, oh geez.
There are panels where you can tell he was using a photograph in the background, and that it didn't bother me, but I didn't sort of notice it and go, oh,
it's taking you out.
It didn't totally take me out, but I just noticed it because I have read the first trade previously. So I was reading it at a more focused level on the details.
Yeah.
And I think that the colorist again kind of made up. Some other colors might make these photo references look a lot worse. But she gave even the photo parts a painterly quality that I liked.
Yeah.
I did kind of feel like this, especially like one scene was in 1968. I did feel like maybe the when we see the streets, there should be more different cars and stuff. I did get that pickiness that Rata mentioned.
Okay.
There was one panel where we saw half of a Volkswagen Bug, but other than that, it just didn't quite feel right to me.
Yeah.
But
I hear you.
Very nitpicky. There were a few men with long sideburns, and of course they're all spies, and they're not going to be dressed like your average hippie. And there was one assistant with long hair. So they put in the little early 70s, late 60s details with just a light touch. which probably is mostly the right thing. Yeah.
It's also one of those few books that when they went into a second printing, I bought the second print of the first issue as well too. Like, so I've got both printings of them just because it was just one of those I felt like I wanted to support that way. And then Damien, you were talking about the hardcover not collecting stuff. So at the end of the first issue is history of spy fiction through the Cold War, like a good 3-page article there that kind of goes through the history of it, which again, it's one of those, another nice thing that he does for people that support the floppies, right? Or the single issues rather, giving them some extra content that you're not getting. I do remember it being a little frustrating when I first got those criminal volumes because I wanted that back matter as well too. But I mean, it's a nice thing. And then you get a nice, of course, ad for everything else they've done. Just a nice little bonus for people that are following along monthly. And again, like thinking back to when we were reading it the first time, just that waiting month to month, this was definitely one that I remember looking forward to. I can't wait till the next one comes out. I want to see what happens. Like, I was invested, and I'm glad that I'm glad this came up in our chat, Rasa, because this is a great one to revisit out of any of the books.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And then issue 2, if you don't mind us going that way, and issue 2 is continues as a strong for me as it was. It felt much shorter, of course, as the first one was a bit, I think, more oversized story. But the second issue was still having great art inside, all those beautiful purplish backgrounds, which I really like the comic books, especially. And that amazing thing when she jumps through the window, and you see her flying. It's like, what? Really? You have this silk suit and suddenly you become like a bat, like open up. And then afterwards, they saying that she's like, it's a experimental thing, you know, like all those, it's that thing of 007's thinking and like, oh, I have something new invented. I'm not sure really how to use it because I'm not hearing that scientist who said to me, press this button once and press that button a second time before something's really bad gonna happen. So it's kind of similar to that in the sense she had, you know, his suit on, and then how she had to compensate and she flies through the window. That kind of little story tidbits of her talking about it is really good for me. I really enjoyed it. I like that kind of stuff in comic books. I don't need to be everything to be described what's happening with her or how she feels. But in this one, it just felt like that moment needs a little more attention because of the, you know, like the action scene they're doing. Kind of like, you know, in the action movies, they kind of like take in their own time and like this huge scene happening. You're like, we're going to take our time to show you what actually we did in there because of things. And then she gets hurt quite badly because of that as well. But, you know, her training, we find out in this issue that it doesn't matter how hurt you are. You just have to put it away and just get on with it, kind of thing. You just do your job, kind of stuff. So in that sense, I really enjoyed it. As I say, it made me feel like excited again. It made me remind me of how excited I was issue by issue. Like you say, I always wanted to wait, and it used to be. I think they had a little bit of a break when they're going monthlies. I remember because I remember once I got really annoyed because 1 month it didn't come out, and I was like, oh my god, it didn't come out. I want to know exactly what's happening with her. Of course, it's like a movie. You can't pause it in the middle of a movie. You just have to watch it every time. So
the thing that stood out to me with this second one is again like this pacing. I really like the way that they kind of introduce a little more of her intensity throughout. So you know they go through from the flying the suit. And then it goes to this car chase, and then it goes to all of a sudden her jumping out of the car and jumping onto a motorcycle. And one of the panels that I really got a kick out of was this on this side here. Where he's kind of retelling the story, and he talks about, like, I swear I saw her smirk like she was enjoying this, you know. So you get from the character that like, hey, maybe this is something that I've really enjoyed in my past, and it's kind of I kind of like being in this position again, even though like I'm running for my life and someone set me up. I just really like the way they've handled that, you know, so you're not getting everything at once. And then these kind of montage pages too, where it's going through her history when she was kind of a full-on agent. just really nice. You know, instead of having page after page of exposition, I feel like they just handled it pretty well with giving you the information that you need in just a, you know, a nicer way instead of like a big chunk of text for half of a page. Yeah, Damien, go ahead. Did you have anything for number 2?
I mean, I agree with all of what you guys have said, and it does have a even more cinematic quality. I think in this issue they ramp up that 70s car chases and shootouts and all that kind of feeling.
Yeah,
it's like a grittier James Bond in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I really like just slight touches, like showing kind of what's going on in her mind by this little round cutout.
Yeah,
showing how she's fighting and she's planning her escape route at the same time. And there's another one which I think was sort of showing something about her fighting strategy there, but I'm not sure if that one was.
Yeah.
And I realize why I, without thinking, read the 3rd issue, because this issue does kind of pick up momentum and speed.
Yep.
But yeah, these again showing how good Breitweiser, well, the artist and Breitweiser are at doing a nighttime action scene and make everything completely clear.
Yeah.
And now, if we had any doubt from the 1st issue, we're realizing she's at the top level of kind of badass secret agents.
Yeah.
Totally.
She's not just,
and just kept it in check.
And we're still waiting to find out why. So they pepper in new mysteries, like why she left active duty and stuff, while solving some mysteries.
Yeah.
I realized I had one question, which goes back to the 1st issue, if you guys don't mind.
No,
yeah.
In the opening sequence, when the spy is killed,
it's France,
someone is narrating, and I don't think it's her. Someone is narrating where everybody discovers they had slept with Velvet in the first few pages, while we watch the spy who eventually gets killed in action. And I don't feel like we ever learn who that was. Was that it couldn't be the narration of the spy getting killed, could it?
I read it as much. I read it as kind of like these are his last thoughts that we're kind of getting in tune with as kind of an intro. I read it as his thoughts. I could be absolutely wrong, but when I read it and just looking at it again, that's whose voice I'm hearing in my head is kind of like last moment, kind of, you know, almost that last second where he's flashing through a bunch of stuff to kind of lead us into the story.
I'm thinking about, you know, the fact that this woman slept with
the thing is
more than everyone else.
I think yes, it is his who talks about it, but because of it's the only first 2 issues, we don't really know, but they do have a relationship. So I think in the culmination, the whole story is about him and her and what they had before. Right. You know.
And I haven't read this whole story. Maybe it means he's not really dead, although I assume he really is dead.
No, well, yeah, you read we can't spoil it for you, but yeah, you definitely read through, and then honestly, it's. I'm gonna read it like after this. I'm gonna read a couple of more issues and make sure that I'm continuing with this. I want to finish it whole of it because it's just such a nice feeling when you're reading it, as I say, of the story.
Yeah, yeah, it feels really comfortable. Yeah.
Well, lunchtime is here, by the way.
The other thing that worked for me so well with this, and Gore already mentioned it, is because I finished this first volume. The parallels are incredible. I mean, like, I think I may turn into an enormous Modesty Blaise fan, because the more it's one of those books that after I finished reading it, and then even talking about this, and the more I think about it, the more I loved it. And some of the parallels are like, especially when it comes to kind of her owning her sexuality, and Modesty Blaise is exactly the same way. But then also Modesty having a relationship with Willie, which is not a sexual relationship. They just have this really unique relationship, and that's fascinating to watch. But when she goes to work, you know, even if she's with some guy that she's had over at her place for the weekend, she tells him to go, and he wants to, and she just basically like, no, this was this, I got to do this, I want you to go, that's it, don't make this weird, don't make it difficult, you know, those kind of things that we think of stereotypically like masculine traits or whatever.
Yeah.
Seeing that in a female character and how they're kind of taking control of their own, whether it's sexuality or just, it doesn't have to be that, it's just this idea of what they want out of their life. The parallels are great, and reading them kind of back to back like I did this week, I think added to my enjoyment of not only Velvet but Modesty as well, because I've been on the internet ever since and looking at different volumes and where I can get the next couple of volumes, because it's an exceptionally good read. That first story, I really enjoyed it a hell of a lot. So yeah, and I'm about the same, Rasa. Tonight I've got the next 3 issues already pulled of Velvet, and I'll probably read all of those tonight, I imagine. Just jump right into it.
So this is very much a Modesty Blaise inspired book then. Has Brubaker talked about that?
I wouldn't necessarily say that. I wouldn't necessarily say that. It just feels like in that kind of world of these kind of strong female characters, it feels like they're, you know, a little simpatico, like they're a little kind of in the same universe to that degree as far as how they're writing these female leads, basically. I don't know if there was direct influence from Velvet or from Modesty Blaise to Velvet, though. I don't know that at all.
I remember when it first came out, Brubaker was kind of selling it as, oh, it turns out that Moneypenny from James Bond is actually the real kick-ass, you know, super,
yeah, that's right.
I'd
forgotten that. Yeah, that's right.
Well, because everybody who's liking those Bond movies and fans, they always think that there's somebody who is there sitting in the corner doing something like what nobody suspects can be. And it's basically, for a fan, that's basically a perfect, like, okay, look, that's what can happen actually to Moneypenny. And it would be great. Imagine having that in the movie. I would definitely be the one to watch it first. So
it'd be spectacular, yeah.
And when he was marketing it, it was easier to market as James Bond than as Modesty Blaise, because at least most people in the US don't even know who she is.
Yeah, that's right.
I just have a vague sense of her, and then hearing you talk about it recently. But
yeah. Anything else to say about those first couple of issues other than us like gushing about them? And
people should go read it. That's what we
should
just go find it. Now it's probably going to be in 50p bin, unfortunately. Though because you would definitely probably you can find it in comic book shops there. Hopefully, maybe not. Or you can find it like a beautiful hardcover like Damien has.
Yeah, this is a $50 hardcover, and then you can probably get it, 30 or 40% off. So it's not a bad deal.
InStockTrades.com, yes.
Yeah.
In America. Oh, bloody hell. I always say it's like, they have everything there, like not only have all comic books, then let's just give them a fucking 30, 40, 50% chance for trades. Like, oh shit.
Yeah, I'm sorry, InStockTrades is treating me so
Yeah.
Have you ever looked at the InStockTrades site there, Rasa? Have you ever had a look through
definitely. Why do you think I'm talking about this stuff like that?
Yeah, so have I. Yeah, I've looked in jealousy after Damien's talked about it. It's like, oh man. Yeah.
There's several YouTube channels who basically, some of them who only picks up trades. They always talk about that because, I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, it's easier when you have an omnibus, which is price tag is 150, instead you get it for 75. It's a big difference. You know what I mean? You can buy 2 of them for price of 1 kind of thing. So yeah. And
that's what turned me into it's InStockTrades that turned me into a hardback collector. I would never have thought, to pay $50 for a book, but when it was suddenly, $30, I say, oh, well, might as well, and then I start loving the hardbacks.
Yeah.
If they ever go away, I'm going to be in trouble.
Yeah. Well, you'll have a good backlog.
Yeah.
I guess, to kind of wrap it up, it's like when you read spy comics, you wish they were like this one. And this one is the one that does it, And maybe Modesty Blaise does too. I should be looking. Now it makes me want to look into Modesty Blaise.
Yeah, it's the same feeling, Damien, because we were talking about Velvet, and then Terrence was showing this modesty blaze, and it's like I mean I'm in here, but I've never heard about it before, and it's female led. So for me, it's another thing like I want to look at, because it's always nice to see that the female can do things like you guys can, but
Yeah.
Me and Terrence are always killing people and
yeah, I know.
Always.
That's so basic. When you
How I
close
leave
the
the
door,
house every morning, I jump through the window.
Yeah, why the hell to use the front door if you have a window? Just fly through it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the why stand when you can sit kind of attitude. Why walk through a door when I can just jump through the window dramatically?
Yeah. Actually, there's this me and my husband have this, because you see I'm from Lithuania, and we were invaded by Russia for quite some time. Most people thinking it's Russia anyway, but my husband always keep on telling me, you probably secret, like those sleeper agents, they're just gonna call you one day and you're just gonna shoot away from the house. Because you can speak Russian, you understand Russian. Why? Of course you spy kind of thing.
So it's always women from Europe, who can do these things.
But there's so many things like that. Like people don't know what they happy. Like you brought up in that era. Like you were growing up in this. Surely somebody's played around with that kind of stuff. Everybody was secret agents and stuff like that. But
yeah.
It's definitely funny when it comes to that kind of stuff. But I love reading spy stuff. It's just as exciting. And especially if females led, it's always something I always want to look at. But talking about reading, I decided to read. I still read those two. I didn't finish. Okay, I have the whole run, but I have not. I just read the first 2 issues, and I know why I have read only first 2 issues. It's a slug. No, it's really good read, but it's depressing. It's really depressing. You have this character who doesn't have, can I say, backbone at the beginning, or at least that's what I felt when I finished the first issue. He does not know how to deal with life, and you have the beginning of a storyline telling you what he's going to become, basically. And once again, you have Elizabeth Breitweiser in here as a colorist, and I can see why she's part of the team because of the mood setting. And this is definitely makes you feel like, I don't know. At first, when I was started reading it about him, I started not feeling pity. I just started being angry because of the lack of backbone in him and how doubting he is. And I understand in a way the feeling of like being human and flaws in you when you start growing up and understanding who you want to be, and when things doesn't go your way, how it's easy to become miserable. But for him in here, he's completely and utterly kind of, I'm sorry saying that, pathetic. And in here in the first issue, where you see him first attempt of suicide, and because of that attempt suicide, he's starting seeing things of the demon things, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, to be honest. And I know that I wasn't sold because like to what kind of tale Brubaker has to say about him in generally, like gun violence and murders and all that stuff. It's not always appeals to me to read about, but knowing that he's capable writer, I don't know. I guess I give up on the storyline because of the main character. It was difficult for me to be understanding in a way where he's going through. But after, like, this is my second read through for first 2, because I think I when I start reading this, I read first 5 issues, but I stopped it after that. I couldn't go through with it because of the depressed feeling the comic had for me, because I myself had been depressed a couple of times, and things which I'm reading reminds me of that. Not something I want to kind of go back to. But one thing what really liked the back matter we guys talk about, and I was looking about this, and of course I read through all of it because I really enjoyed all the movies. What's his name? Charles Bronson was into. So I watched this movie we were talking about, and honestly, it basically destroyed the day I was reading this comic book and I watching the movie after, because it's so grim and violent, and how America in 1970s New York was a horrific place to be at, especially where your streets were closed. I'm not sure how much is that realistic it is, but in the movie where, like I think they were saying that they had signs for tourists to come into New York, and like almost felt like Gotham, to be honest, and in the dark times of the Batman, where you can't just turn in one side of the street, because you know what, you're probably not going to come back after that. And it honestly kind of, there's similar things, traits happens where my husband is from, South Africa, Johannesburg. There's some certain time of the day or night, actually, you wouldn't want to turn in the street because of the violence in there. So in that sense, I don't know, was I excited to go back to read a second issue? Not really, for sure. I was like, wow, this is way too much back matter for me, kind of thing to digest. But you know what? When I read this issue today, when I was thinking, okay, should I go for it? Because honestly, as I say, that feeling, but the story was flowing better in here. I felt that a bit more, not like, I kind of knew where he's gonna probably go with this story. He's gonna start killing people because just to survive, because of this thing demon is telling him to do things. I still don't understand or know, because I don't remember where I read before to what, but it's kind of this scene here where he's actually does the deed of pulling the trigger. Kind of like, okay, and kind of we'll see what's gonna be, but it's not gonna be as easy going. And I don't know what's gonna be the end of the storyline, but I don't think he's gonna survive this. There's no way you survive after starting this kind of, I'm just gonna go with vigilante mode and I'm just gonna kill everybody and nothing is gonna happen. I'm just gonna walk away and I'm gonna be fine with it after that. So I don't think that's what the story. But still, in my head, I don't know what was the purpose of him telling the story. Did he wanted to show that nothing is always beautiful or beautiful before, or how people goes into this mode of survival or trying to survive, and the only way of existence is to murder people? I mean, this is just the first couple of feelings I have. It's kind of a heavy topic in saying in this day and age anyway, because people tend to, when things goes really bad for them, they tend to go into trying to find the easy way out, and it's not always that kind of thing. So we'll see. I'm not sure if I say, I'm still debating in my own head if I want to continue reading this because of the topic. You know what I mean? It's just going from bad to worse, and his relationship with that female, where she's basically playing around with him, and he's not seeing it, because his head is not right anyway at the end of the day, and then he's not surrounded by people who he can be helped by. You know what I mean? It's just they pushed him forward. No wonder that he was trying to kill himself after what she was saying about him. So, but that's what happens in your brain when you're not right, kind of thing. If you're depressed or generally, you have to be surrounded by people who is basically really supportive and really positive. Because, as I say, it happened to me, and thankfully I was surrounded by people who were really helpful. Because you lose yourself completely. You don't really know what's white or what's color, kind of thing. Your brain is kind of like starts tricking you in a way of knowing what's happening around you. So in that sense, kind of did remind me of that, which I wasn't really kind of like, oh, really? Do I want to go there? Do I want to remember what it felt like, kind of thing? But as I say, Bluebreaker is interesting because it's not difficult to read. Okay, it's not something I like, oh, I can't read because I don't understand. It's just in my head I'm debating to know exactly what he wanted to do with this comic book, but I'm not finding it yet after 2 issues of reading it. So.
Well, I read the whole thing and I still don't know what he was trying to do with it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I never finished
a bunch of ideas. He's playing with a bunch of ideas about it's kind of the flip side of Invincible, about the attraction of violence and the desire to be like a superhero or a vigilante. And also playing with the whole whole mind fuck of the character wondering, am I crazy or is there really a demon, and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in the end, Brubaker didn't want to answer those questions, and he found in my opinion, kind of weak way to get out of it.
Oh, I see.
But other people liked the ending, but I didn't.
Yeah.
So I felt it was worth reading, but I was disappointed that Brubaker didn't have a way to bring it all together in the end.
Oh, I see.
It almost felt like, because I never read the whole thing, I dropped off. And I think it almost, part of it, like just listening to you now talk about it, it almost seems like a natural extension of his kind of way that he focuses on these noir stories, where it's this kind of doomed character that nothing good is going to happen to. This is just that idea taken to the extreme. And I remember when I was reading it, it seemed to be so kind of, I don't know, it just seemed to be very basic. Like, okay, this is a story about when you start violence, where is that going to lead? Even though you think it's justified, it seemed too basic of a story at first, where it was like, surely Brubaker's got something else going on. There's got to be some twist coming. And I remember keeping reading issues, and it just kept extending that idea, where it just got to a point where it was like, I don't know, maybe I'll pass on it this week. And then next thing you know, the series was over, and I just didn't keep up. It didn't feel like there was enough, like this Velvet, where there was stuff to kind of key you in. I totally agree with you, Rasa. There were some really depressing moments, especially when you're like, I think of the movie Memento is a good one, where it starts from the end of the story and works its way backwards. That this character is surrounded by people that just want to take advantage, and they're not really there for the betterment of this particular person. It felt that way, even though there was moments, I remember from when I read it, that there was moments of good relationships and Kill or Be Killed. It felt like it was really like, it was that step beyond bleak to like, oh my God, this is kind of really depressing. You know what I mean? Reading this, like you were saying. And then ultimately it just didn't keep my interest. There just wasn't something going on to kind of, all right, now I'm seeing what he's trying to do. It just felt like it was not much going on. So, yeah.
Well, as I say, I'm not sure. I have the whole run because when I was picking up, I stopped it. But then one of my friends, he gave me away the whole run of it. So I was like, okay, so I have it there. So at the end of the day, as I say, I always do give a chance to Brubaker because of I know what he wrote before, and I enjoyed it. But when somebody is touching this kind of dark matter, it's really interesting how far you can take it. But if you Damien say that he didn't really, in your mind, he didn't have that kind of ending you kind of wanted to see. It's kind of I as I say, I need to see for myself to give you opinion about that, of course, but we'll see. I don't know. It's just like something. One of the probably the first comic books where I felt like, oof, it's kind of like okay, the matter of that. Sometimes you need that kind of thing to read to understand that, we do learn to what we do kind of thing as a humanity. At the end of the day, we have flawed. We're never going to be like perfect human beings. In a sense, we don't need to always have happy-go-lucky storylines to read. We do have to go in every directions just to see us kind of like maybe showing us what can happen in a way. But it's so far. It's even the art. Colors is amazing. As I say, I enjoyed that as the second issue more because it felt like there was more action, less his brain going, but still with his brain going through it. But it's more actiony to understand his. Oh yeah, I feel much better now because he's feeling sick because it's like that mentally the demon said to him, if you don't kill anybody in a month's time, you're gonna die. And then suddenly at the end of this month, he starts feeling really sick and he's like, oh my God, I'm panicking. I'm going to die. And suddenly his thought, when he starts, okay, I'm going to kill somebody, that thought brings in his head and he's like, oh, I'm much better now. Look, I can look myself in the mirror because I'm going to kill somebody. Am I that person? And when he goes for the gun and he goes to ask this guy in the van, do you know how to get a gun? And he has this horrible idea. Oh, I know where to get the gun out. And he brings up another story of that while he's taking the gun. That just like, oh, wow. So you have a bad story going on, but you're going to bring more bad stories because
you pile it on top of everything.
Yeah, you're going to explain to us how this is going to go from bad to worse, basically. Because the way he decides to kill that first person is like, oh, like in the back of your head, that memories you do forget. Okay, that's the reason your brain is like shove it away as far as possible, kind of thing, But then some things can bring that memory back, and then he remembers of this. But he never asked. That's the thing. Like when kids has memories, I'm not saying the kid didn't have that feeling. Basically, what happened in the story, I don't know, you remember, Terence, but basically his friend's brother was abusing him. His own brother, basically abusing him without realizing. And then his understanding was like, oh, his training process before he shoots him, it's like, oh, maybe he did that good things, but he's a bad guy. But why didn't you ask him? You have a pointing gun at the person. Ask him a question, because you already know what you're going to do. You're going to shoot him. So ask him a question. Did you really did that? You know what I mean? Did you actually? And but no, it's just like plain blank. Shortened.
Sure, like, but answering questions will give you answers, though, right? And that wouldn't help if you've already made up your mind on a situation, right? So,
no, I know,
and I feel like that's a lot of the stuff he's playing with for sure. I just found that it didn't interest me as much. Again, it's one of those things. Not that it's all over the place, but it felt like it was just a thing that you get even in superhero comics like this. How far can you go, and how far should you go, and those kind of things. But again, that's me saying it from a point of I didn't read the whole series, so I understand that there's probably stuff that happened afterwards. Just to kind of not end on like the bleakest note possible, because it is a pretty dark story now that I'm thinking about it. The other thing that I read the other day was the few issues of Palookaville, Seth's Palookaville, where it's it's a good life if you don't weaken, I think, the storyline. And then Gore is just saying, just to kind of put this last thought up there, the bleakness of the story didn't bother me. I liked it. However, the visions and the demon detracted from the story. I found it too distracting, is what he was saying. Yeah.
I would say it was an interesting experiment, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He played with some elements.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, just that Brubaker was playing with a bunch of elements, and I think he was kind of improvising, and it didn't quite work out. Mm-hmm. But I think, as Jared in the comments has said, I'm about to tell you it was based on Spider-Man. So I think he was playing with the Charles Bronson kind of character and the Peter Parker type of character, and he was trying to come up with how in real life would some crazy middle-class kid decide to take on the mob for no reason, like Spider-Man does. And that was kind of how he got there. And it was interesting. And I liked the demon stuff and the fact that it, I hope I'm not spoiling it, that it turns out the demon appeared in his dad's paintings and stuff.
I know that in second issue, I read that they was talking about the dad's drawings and how things he was involved in his brain. And as straight away I was thinking, okay, this is it. He has such a wide imagination. Those paintings basically came into his head, kind of thing, and reminded him of what the hell. And then, like your kid's mind, we remember what we seen when we were children, because especially something jarring in your head. So if that sees in his mind, maybe that was influenced him to see the demon in his head. So
yeah, I don't think it was a successful experiment, but I do kind of admire the experiment. It's unusual for Brubaker to experiment in belly flops. So
that's true.
Now I know why he had those Spider-Man type of the covers, because they were like homages, because I looked at them through and I was like, that looks like Spider-Man issue, like cover, but of course with the so that's why. Okay.
Yeah.
So now I understand what is this all about, because people were talking about it. I remember that clearly about those covers. I was like, why would you put Spider-Man in this, in like kind of, thing? But now I kind of understand you guys talking about it. So okay, everything ticks together in that sentence. Now I understand.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off on moving on to other subjects.
No, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. No, absolutely. It's good to kind of have that piece at the end there. It's a good life if you don't weaken. Is the name of this one. G had been talking about it on Twitter, and turned out I had all the issues, so I read it. And it's I don't know, like Seth, out of those kind of artists, like the Joe Matt, Seth, and Chester Brown, I would say that Seth has always been classically kind of a little bit of on the lower rungs for me, not because his stuff isn't enjoyable. It's just it didn't always appeal to me. And I find the more that I dig into his stuff, the more I really, really dig it. And I thought this was such a nice story and kind of really encompassed, you know, what little I know about Seth as a person anyway, from not only like seeing interviews and stuff with him, but just even from his books. So it's kind of like this fixation on finding these old New Yorker cartoonists, and then one specifically jumps out at him, and Kalo is his name, that jumps out at him, and he starts going on this quest to find everything that Kalo had done. Yeah, Jared, I remember you saying that in Twitter, that it's a book that he reads about once a year. And then in this, Chester Brown makes an appearance, is what G is also saying as well. And they kind of all appear in each other's books at various times, which is great. You get a little window into their friendship and what each of them bring to their conversations. He even does stuff where apparently this is a Kalo piece that Seth recolored for the cover of this Palookaville #6 here. And just a really nice, his kind of like struggle with, you know, the past and what it's like in the future, and sort of this idea that, you know, even Chester says to him at one point, he's like, oh, I feel another things were better in the old days conversation coming up from you, you know, or tirade coming up for you. And that's kind of how he is. Oh, hey, there you go. Kalo was fictional. Well, there you go. That passed me by. I didn't realize. I thought it was a real person. Look at you, Jared. Thank you for that. So, and then just this attachment that he has with the past and what his place is in modern times, and what he thinks about the future, and how that he feels it affects his relationships and his kind of judgmental side. You know, I think there was one issue where he talks about, you know, it's not people's fault. They don't even know that they're putting their foot in their mouth with me when they start talking about their enjoyment of like crime fiction, I think is what he specifically says. But I mean, his art has always been gorgeous, and it really is amazing in this book. Like, just his simple line and the I don't know, man, there's nothing about it that kind of turns me off. I really think he handles it well. And then even things like the top here with not a lot of like with no kind of panel borders to speak of. I think it's really nice stuff, and it was such an easy read. I read it all in one sitting. And I couldn't put it down. It was just so comfortable to jump right into, and it makes me, you know, puts me right on that. I want to read more. I've got a bunch of other Palookaville stuff. I started yesterday on Clyde Fans is the next story, which was also collected in a book form as well too. And just one issue in on that one before I went to bed. But this one really stood out to me as a real nice piece. Yeah, the Wimbledon Green book. Yeah, that is a good one. G is saying, never read any Seth before, but now interested in Wimbledon Green, about the greatest collector of comics in the world. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, one of those that maybe you see in the cheapo bins, well worth picking up.
Just don't look it online. I just looked up online. The prices are crazy for one issue, like in the single format. I don't know how many issues there is. How many issues there is to collect in that storyline?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 issues. But I think it was collected in one volume as well too. Yeah. I think it was one of his first collected pieces in his kind of career there or whatever. Jared might be able to correct me if that's right or wrong. Yeah, and then Seth's Mr. X work is my only venture into his artwork. And that stuff, like I was saying when I was reading that series, took me by surprise because it definitely had shades of Seth, but it didn't start out that way. But I really liked reading Mr. X just to see his art kind of develop throughout that story, because by the time he kind of finishes that run on it, he's almost fully formed as like what I know him as, like art-wise. Really incredible, though. Well worth checking out. I mean, any of his books are worth checking out, but I really like this story, and especially him talking about how like comics and cartoon strips are just kind of feed into his everyday life. He'll find himself thinking of things, and this situation on a train reminds him of a Peanuts comic strip, and this one reminds him of this, and just how his whole life is kind of all encompassing of comics and cartoonists and stuff. G is saying the volume is smaller than a comic. Yeah.
So to understand, Palookaville is more like what? Compilation of stories. It's just the title of the comic book, and there's you have underlying storyline after that?
Correct. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So it's just his comic. I don't remember how many issues it went, but basically where he just told a bunch of these stories. So I don't know if at any point it was kind of an anthology. I believe each one was kind of its own story, but I could be wrong about that because I haven't read the entire series. But I think it's kind of one continuing story in these small chunks. Then he'll tell another one.
So it's like
everybody tries to sell the first issue for $200. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
What were you going to say, Rasta?
No, it's just like in my head, I'm trying to process it. Basically, Palookaville is just like a universe, and you have basically the stories of that thing going on, like you say. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's necessarily in a universe. I don't know if everything because I mean he has a couple of different kind of cities. This one is really based in, it feels like he's visiting places in Ontario, and then in some of his other stuff, I believe the city is called Dominion City in some of his other stories, where that's kind of this fictional world that he's created, so far as he's made actual models of the buildings and the downtown, and done like I think it did a little tour around where his kind of sculptures kind of went to different art galleries, and he was showing kind of this is the town and all the detail and all the buildings, and sort of uses that to influence his storytelling to some degree.
I see. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Looks interesting.
Yeah, really nice. A really nice read. So what do you got? What do you got for on your slate there for next week, Rasa? Besides Invincible, of course.
Yeah, almost wanted to mention it. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm gonna continue reading Velvet for sure. So I'm gonna read at least maybe I don't know how I feel like probably a couple more, like 3 issues at least, like to round off like a first volume, maybe 6. Depends to see how it is, just for my own sake. But definitely, I'm kind of keep on glaring at it since Damien showed it. I'm probably gonna scroll through a couple of pages, see how I am gonna feel about it. Like you say, Damien, like maybe I'm gonna hate it so much I'm gonna come and start shitting on it, but no, I'm not gonna do that. I will say, what the hell is this shit all about? Anyway, even though it's
saying, if you get bored, try skipping ahead.
Yeah, I know. I'm just shooting shit kind of thing, like insane. But yeah, definitely gonna have a look because it's something I haven't, as I say, my collection, and I keep on looking back and getting something to read what I actually have rather than me going and buying something. And then if I feel like that Kill to be Killed or Be Killed, I might look at it. It's already I'm already shoving it away kind of thing in my mind.
Yeah.
because of that miserable things. But yeah, and I'm probably gonna find something I'm gonna be interested in what I have to read. Like I want to keep on telling myself I should go and maybe reread some other things like Revival, a lot of Tim Seeley's. I'm reading Money Shot of Tim Seeley's, and I'm enjoying it thoroughly. That's all over sexualized. Actually, he talking about that. He put a link to go to Playboy.com to read one of storyline of his Money Shot. Could you believe? On the Playboy website. So I pressed on it. I was like, I feel kind of dirty somehow just because it says Playboy on it. But I didn't finish reading it. I was already enjoying it. What I've read, it's just like a couple of panels. It's like a really short storyline. But thinking of that, I remind me of Revival and how much I was going crazy for it when it was coming out. Basically, one of my favorite comic books I read when I started reading comic books. I just enjoyed that universe and the sisters and stuff like that. So I might go there, but there's so many other stories I haven't even touched. So maybe, I don't know. As I say, I will see what's tempting me. I'm
See how
actually
you feel.
I'm looking at a shelf where the trades are, and there's a couple of them there taking my attention, but I'm not sure yet. So
Yeah.
But aren't you going to talk
Damien, I
about the
realized,
future? Sorry.
I was just going to say, Damien, I forgot that we had mentioned about future. I'm curious to hear what you had to say about those issues.
I'm curious to hear what you have to say. You may know more about these than I do. I randomly
don't know much about them.
I randomly picked up the first 3 issues, when I was wandering around Floating World, the comic shop that carries the more avant-garde stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And these were very attractive, and compared to most other stuff there, oops, I had that upside down. Compared to most other stuff there, reasonably priced. It was only $6 an issue there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think I had an initial worry that I was supposed to understand the stories, and then when I let go of that, I enjoyed it a lot as an art comic. In fact, it almost is like a one-man raw comics.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one artist, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah.
But it feels like there's 5 or 6 artists per issue. And he does all different kinds of styles of comics, and at one point he's doing Don Martin even. Oh, there it is.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, from Mad Magazine, and then these styles that are just more sort of, I don't know, Euro styles, if you will. But everything it's just amazing how many styles he has.
Mm-hmm.
There is the old cranky part of me that likes a story and wonders what it would be like if he teamed up with a writer who was more narrative.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a lot of fun to read. I think it's hard to read a whole bunch at once. But then I heard you say you read all. Were there 6 and you read them all in a week?
I have 5 so far. 5. I didn't read all of them at once. I read the last 2 kind of back to back, though. The first 3, I made it through them in a shorter period of time for sure. And the last 2 I read just because I wanted to see what was going to go on, because I had heard that, or maybe I read it somewhere, I don't remember. Maybe it was a review in one of those Bubbles type zines or Strangers, where it was kind of 4 and 5 where things started to sort of interweave a little more. I didn't find that for myself. I read it and I was kind of just as confused as I was the rest of them. And I found a part of me was thinking
characters like the magician and some other people who aren't named.
Can you guys remind us?
Spaceship that's floating around in space recurs.
Can you tell us who's the artist?
He doesn't list anywhere on here who he is.
No, I'll find it out right now though, because I've
forgotten. You kickstarted him? I think it might be in the fine print, and it's translated. That's what I saw in the fine print. Another piece of culture translated into human English by T. Ratala. It doesn't say. Tommy Musturi.
That's right. Yeah, Tommy Musturi. Musturi.
What language was this originally in, I wonder?
So when I ordered these, I ordered directly from him, and they came from Finland. So he's Finnish originally. Okay. So I didn't realize that they'd been translated. I didn't look into it. I thought that maybe he was just writing them in English. I found kind of, as I finished those 5 issues, the part that kind of got to me and made me kind of laugh. I don't remember where I saw it. It was some sort of satirical thing where it was this idea of people writing in such a way as to make it appear like it's this really great deep story that you're just not tapping into, and just using some of this flowery language, you know what I mean? Where I started getting that feeling near the end. There's some stuff that really hits it on the mark as far as like it's very direct. But then there's stuff that just kind of alludes. And I think that's the thing that keeps me coming back, this allusion to this world that we don't quite have a handle on. But again, it feels like there's going to be something where all of a sudden everything goes into sync. You know what I mean? Where, that's what you're going for, because he's at 5 issues. He has a plan to do 10 issues total. So we're at the halfway mark anyway.
I found his website.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, Boing Being. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
So were some of these web comics to begin with?
I don't believe so, but I don't know how he started his career, because on that website they show a lot of stuff. He's got a ton of work behind his name there. So maybe some of it did start as web comics, but I'm not quite sure the history of this one.
Yeah, he has like Mary Shelley versus Dracula story, The Lone Inspector, That Way, Para Road, The First Book of Hope. That's a Surin Onit. That's Finnish because I have Finnish friend. Their language is alien to me, to be honest. When they start speaking, you should listen. It's like, what? It's like, are you sure this is actually makes sense? It's just like, excuse me, what did you just say?
It doesn't share the same roots as most European languages.
Definitely not. Definitely. And they don't like, they actually, apparently the language has very similarities to Japanese, which is absolutely bizarre. But yeah, I'm just looking at some of the words. Yeah, it's definitely like when they speak, it's like, especially the most fascinating for me when I hear kids speaking. It's like, wow, it's like they make up the language. Not like kids have made up language. That's how it feels like when you listen to them. It's just me ignorant, but you know, like, but my friends like, how dare you say that to me? It's like, it just feels so foreign to me. It's like, what do you mean? Your language feels foreign to me as well. Anyway, sorry, you talk about your comic.
No, that's okay. That's all right.
It's a way more attractive package than your normal sort of underground zine kind of thing. And I noticed looking in that tiny print that he lists a bunch of, and now I realize I should have known it was Finnish, the Finnish Cultural Foundation, the Finnish Illustration Association. So all these different cultural groups have funded this. And that's why it's such high quality for a decent price. And maybe they paid for the English translation, which was still printed in Finland, and then to make it available outside of the country. So, I mean, I wish there were more comics like this. So I'll have to look for the other three.
Yeah, because it says... sorry. I'm looking at the website. It says there's five issues came out yet. And there's a future of 10. So it says it's going to do 10 of them.
10, I guess.
And I think the fifth issue, like I love all of the covers, but the fifth issue I think is my favorite. I love, like I said in the video, and like we were just talking about, it's one of the things that impresses me the most, that this is one individual doing all of these different styles, and I think it's pretty damn impressive. And I'm willing, I'm along for the ride. And then the story may come, the story may not come, but it's not putting me off yet, even though there's moments where it's like, oh, for God's sakes, just tell me something, which is maybe why he has a couple of those stories that seem to be very direct, of like, here, you want some direct story? Here you go. Here's my like tirade or my, one man argument for whatever it is that I want to talk about. So I'm along for the ride, though. I'm going to definitely support it the rest of the way through, because I'm curious to see where it goes and how it ends. Right. So.
Yeah, I would say he seems like about 8 different complete artists, not like just some artist playing with the style of it. Like it's totally different styles that are fully formed. It's just kind of mind-boggling.
It really is. Yeah, I don't know if I've really seen anything, and it's a good way to put it, like a one-man raw. You know what I mean? I think that's a really good way to put it. What were some, like, are you finding you have some favorite reoccurring characters so far, Damien, or?
I like this guy who's a magician.
Yeah.
And it's silent comics, so you have to kind of focus to see what's going on. And they're just gags, right? You read for 4 pages or so, or 5 pages, and then you get to what the gag was about Tristram the magician. And then there's I don't know if it's a character or not in this art style that reoccurs. Yeah, and I don't know what's going on in it, but I like that one. Yeah, and let's see, wrong issue. But I think it's maybe the same style as that cover you were liking. I really like this style, but I don't know if it's all exactly right. Story.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like every single one reoccurs throughout every single issue, so they all kind of continue with their own sort of storyline. But then it just seems like there's themes within each issue that they all sort of touch on.
Right. There's one that's kind of making fun of reality TV. That was maybe my least favorite.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that one, that's it. That's reoccurring.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought of when reading some other sort of what I call art comics. Like there's the autobio comics, but then there's the sort of pure art comics. Is what they resemble most is gag cartoons. You know, either a few panels in a newspaper. I
don't know if that's me. I'm losing everybody.
I see you. Do you hear me?
Hello?
Hello? I see you.
Have I lost everybody? Yeah, thank you very much. Helping. Oh, do I have you back there, Damien? Are we here?
Do you see me? Do you hear me?
I can see and hear you now, yeah.
Okay. I haven't, Rasa went away, but I've been seeing you the whole time and hearing you the whole time.
Okay, good. Okay.
So anyway,
I don't know what's going on. All of a sudden he's gone.
I can enjoy kind of the art comics when I think of them as extended gags, as opposed to story.
Hey.
The gang is back.
Yeah, I just saw a blank screen and I was like, oh my God, what's going on here? So it's just like, let me rejoin, I guess.
So sorry, Damien, you're gonna have to back up a little bit because I'm not sure where I lost you at. Sorry if you go back on that thought you had.
Well, just that what I'm calling art comics, for a lack of a better term, should be read, I'm now decided, as if they're a gag cartoon, like in the newspaper comic strips, or one of the, either 3 panels or one of those 1-panel gags. Even though they may go on for pages, they're really in the spirit of some kind of just joke. And he also does a bunch of, each issue has a few mini strips where I'm not trying to find it this issue, but one that's called The Stoners, that seems to be the Flintstones in an office. And anyway, there's the page of the mini strips. That's why I wondered if he was also a web strip guy. But they're kind of the idea of a comic strip rather than an actual comic strip in this case. But to me, each one of these things reads as some kind of whimsical gag comic strip. Like even his intro thing with this odd family at the park. And then suddenly there's an earthquake, and the gag is the future appears. The actual words, the future.
Yeah.
So anyway, I kind of let go of doing anything but looking for where's the joke, and just enjoying the artwork.
It's not a bad way. So the magician character in issue number 4, he gets relegated to the strip in this particular story. So, it's almost like he's been downgraded. But one of the things that another one of the stories that I'm finding I'm enjoying a little bit, and again, it's this idea of, I think that's a really good way to think about it. This gag strip is this one, and it's this kind of group of musicians and artists that are literally living underground, and what are they going to do with their art, and they label each of them. So, one is like a noise musician and one is doing this experimental type of thing. And so it does seem to be poking fun at a lot of these kind of stereotypes of these artists and people like that, and what you can do with art to really have any sort of effect on things. I'm finding I'm enjoying that one more as it's kind of getting a little more fleshed out to some degree.
Oh, cool.
And then this issue number 4 has a new story as well, with another kind of style, a different kind of style there. And again, it's just a silent comic throughout the whole thing. So it's a visual treat, that's for damn sure. And then just kind of this with some sound effects, with some page after page of sound effects and things with a little bit of a story going on. So and the reality show, I actually enjoyed the reality show to some degree, because that one seemed to me most overtly kind of like a joke, or like a satire, or poking a little bit more. Parody, thank you, that's exactly it. So it's definitely unique, that's for sure. I don't think I've read anything like it in the past.
It'd be nice if we could get into more comic book stores, because I think some people would find it attractive, and it could, I don't know, generate a new generation of kind of out there artists.
Yeah. Well, it feels like a lot of those guys are right on the cusp, like we've talked about before, even that all-time comics, because there's a couple of the pieces in here that remind me of that crew as well. And it feels like those guys are perpetually just on the edge of kind of breaking and becoming kind of a little bit bigger and going somewhere. Right. But I mean, I think that the smart thing that he's done with this, and maybe that's with all the backing, is that no matter where you are, if you order from him and you order this book, he'll ship it for free. So you pay the same price you did in the store. You were saying $6 US. That's what the price is online too, $6 online, and he'll mail it to you for nothing. I mean, it takes a little while to get to you, but you're getting the same deal, which I think is pretty smart, no matter where you are in the world, right? So that's a nice way to approach it.
Well, it seems like in the 90s, I could find Peter Bagge and Dan Close and Chester Brown in my regular comic book shops, and that kind of thing isn't there anymore. And it's gone more underground. And I know there's a very active world there, but I just feel like in this kind of slick format, it would be easier for someone to just pick up at a comic book store and page through and say, "Hey, I'll give it a shot." But I don't know. They might also be really disappointed you're a comic shop person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even back then, though, there was stuff on the shelves that, may have looked amazing, and there was still that disappointment factor. But no, it's a good point. It was a lot, you could find that stuff a lot, and you just don't. It's really this. And I think it's because it's so much in this kind of art world, so you got to be in the know, and you got to contact this person who's going to hook you up with so-and-so. And it makes it a little more difficult to access, but yeah.
And like Raw Magazine was in comic book shops back in the 80s. I would buy Conan and Raw Magazine.
Amazing. Yeah, that's amazing to think about that. Yeah.
Oh, well.
Cool. Okay, everybody. Thanks very much, Damien. It was great to see you. Thanks for coming to hang out.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Rasa, always a pleasure. Should we do it again next week?
Maybe.
Okay, maybe. All right. Thanks everybody. We're gonna end it here, and then we'll see you next week where we'll talk more comics. And I guess at least the next couple of issues of Velvet I'll try to dig into tonight and the rest of the week there, Rasa, for our next conversation. Okay, thanks to Jared, everybody in the chats, Gore Vidal, Mind the Comics, Chaos and Comics, etc., everybody who joined and hung out with us today. We'll see you next week, everybody. Take it easy.
Bye.
All right.